that he must have a rehearsal in Reykjavik before his meeting in Washington. I don't need satellite. What does it mean? So they understand.
No understanding of your sarcasm.
Absolutely, it's awful. Yeah,
it's terrible. Good evening. My name is Howard Wiseman. I am the Secretary General of the Jewish Agency for Israel. On my left is Natan Sharansky. It is our privilege to bring this message this evening to the leadership of the Richmond Jewish Federation. Each of us has important and meaningful personal connections with Richmond. For myself, Rob Hyman, a close personal friend with whom I work so closely together in Memphis, Tennessee. For Natan, of course, Erwin Kotler this evening is in Richmond to address the leadership of the Richmond Jewish Federation and of the Jewish community. Erwin acted as Natan's attorney during the several years past. Natan, please, you might have a personal message for Erwin this evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Irving. I'm glad to have an opportunity to speak to you again. And I think it's important to explain to all of you, my dear friends, what was the importance of the work of Irving Kotler for me during the years when I was in prison. From the first day when I was arrested and isolated from all the world, I was threatened that I was sentenced to death. And I remember that the main thought of mine was that they will dare to sentence me to death only if the world would never know what I'm sentenced for. Because I saw that that if the world will know that my so-called crime is only my Jewish activity, and which has nothing to do with espionage in which I was publicly accused, then they wouldn't dare to do it. But for 16 months before the trial, I was in absolute isolation from the world, and I had no idea if anybody knows what's happening. Now, when I came to Israel 9 years after this, and I saw a big volume, Sharansky's case, made by Irving Kotler, which he was making immediately during the investigation, while my friends were called for interrogations and were interrogated. And I saw that thanks to the work of my friends in Moscow, like Dina Beilina and others, and such people as Irving Kotler abroad, the world did know what I am accused for. And in spite of that isolation in which they have broken this isolation, in fact. And no doubt that finally it saved me. And exactly like Irving was doing it for my case, we all must destroy that isolation, that iron curtain which separates us from our brothers, keep the world informed about their plight, and by this to help them to come to freedom. Thank you, Irving, for everything what you did for me, and again, hello this evening.
Thank you, Natan. Natan, both of us have come to Israel during this past year from totally different environments. Myself and my family from a land of freedom. You from a land of modern slavery. Coincidentally as well, we both have had children born to us here in Israel in the last 10 days. You, Rachel, ourselves, Natan Yisrael, from my father, who had never had the joy of being in Israel. It is more likely in many ways that the people of Richmond understand perhaps my motivations for being here in Israel, my desire, our family's desire to live here. What about your own? What are your feelings about being in Israel now, especially relating perhaps some of your thoughts during your years of incarceration, your years of activity as a refusnik in the Soviet Union? Why are you here?
See, you told about your way, and I understand that the way of American Jews to Israel is mainly through their Jewishness, through their life in accordance with Jewish tradition. They come to Zionism, to the need of living in Israel. My way, as the way of many Soviet Jews, was absolutely contrary. We became Zionists before we became Jews, because the isolation in which we lived, that atmosphere of forced assimilation, has brought us to such a state in which we, in fact, knew nothing about our language, about our history, and we couldn't get such an information. and we had a kind of complex of inferiority. Our desire was to be assimilated as quickly as possible. And it was 1967, which in my life, as well as in life of many other Soviet Jews, was a crucial point when we found out that we Jews can defend ourselves not on the base of assimilation, but on the base of our national identification, that we can be from the position of pride, of strength, of self-respect. Israel became for us a symbol of our pride, symbol of our strength. And then from our spiritual relationship with Israel, we came to the necessity to study our language, to know more about our history, and finally to break that Iron Curtain. And during all these years, which I was in prison, I felt very strong spiritual relationship with my people and with my land. And of course, when I came here, and I'm happy and enjoying every day of life in Israel, of course, it's not so simple like in prison or camp. It's much more complicated because it's life in the free society where there are different points of views and a struggle of free, open, and interesting struggle of all opinions. But it's that life of which I was dreaming, that life in which you can, in the best possible way, express your Jewishness. It's that life which gives real sense to your existence. And I really enjoy with my wife and now with my child and with my mother, with all our family, enjoy every hour, every minute of living in the free Jewish state.
Thank you. In some sense, you've already outlined a challenge which relates to my next question. You've stated that for Soviet Jewry, it has been a movement from Zionism to Judaism. For American Jewry, perhaps the challenge is the opposite, from Judaism to Zionism. And we're still attempting in America to fulfill that challenge. But I want to ask you directly in terms of the challenge that you might present to the Richmond Jewish leadership this evening, and through them to all of the American Jewish leadership. It's through their involvement with Jews throughout the free world. The Jewish leadership in Richmond provides financial, emotional, political support to Israel and to Jewry throughout the world, including, of course, Soviet Jewry. They're involved in a network of organizations that includes their federation, the UJA, the National Conference of Soviet Jewry, AIPAC, and of course, the Jewish Agency here in Israel. From your experience, Natan, what advice, what challenges do you see that lies ahead for the leadership of the free world? For the people in Richmond, what would your personal message be to them in terms of aiding, helping Soviet Jewry and the State of Israel?
As to helping to Soviet Jewry, my message is quite clear. It was American Jewry which played a crucial role in opening the gates of the Soviet Union. Of course, they could be never opened without the struggle of Jews inside the Soviet Union. They could be never opened without moral leadership of the State of Israel, but also without that practical support transformed into political and financial pressure on the Soviet Union, which was raised by American Jewry, first of all. And now, when the gates are closed again, and when Gorbachev tries to isolate Jewish refuseniks and prisoners of Zion from all the world and to stage some hypocritical signs of liberalization and to convince the world the situation is better while it is worse than anywhere before, it's especially important to keep the world informed about the real situation. It's American Jews who can come to Israel, who must come to Soviet Union, who must meet refuseniks, who must gather all this information, bring it to the West, tell the West the truth, who must, by their massive demonstrations, to give a clear message to the Soviet Union that they wouldn't succeed in deceiving the world. And through the political bodies of America, to put the question of, to keep the question of the Soviet Jewry on the agenda of all main negotiations between East and West, and to have direct linkage between this issue and the other issues in which Soviet Union is interested. As to the other aspects of the help of American Jewry, well, really they give a big financial support also to those organizations which are dealing with the absorption of Soviet Jews in Israel. I think this system has to be improved. I think you mentioned some of the organizations. We know that there are hundreds of other organizations.
Right.
I think there are too many bureaucratic procedures which go from the moment when they give the money and to the moment when this money reach really the centers of absorption and help them. There are many complaints that this is a very bureaucratic system. I think that those who have their role in giving money and in helping absorption, and American Jewry plays a big role in Sakhnut and other organizations, must try to find ways of improving this system too.
Through their involvement, I'm sure that will happen. Natan, I thank you for a clear and direct message. It's been a pleasure this evening. It's been a pleasure, Rob, Erwin, to have been with you and all of the leadership of the Richmond Jewish community. Thank you.
Right. Rob, you said.
Rob.
Irving is